Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hey, I'm so glad you've joined us on Life Support. And what we do on this program is we talk about things that are somewhat difficult to discuss, but that are really important because God desires us to thrive. And what we're going to talk about today are areas that Satan has really infiltrated and affect a lot of people. So I think we're going to learn a lot today. Our guest is Laura Mulliken. She's the Executive Director of Trafficking Justice. Laura, thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate it so much.
So grateful for the invite.
So tell me about what you do at Trafficking Justice.
Trafficking Justice is a Christian nonprofit that was started about 12 years ago, and we want to see an end to sexual exploitation and sex trafficking in the state of Minnesota, particularly. We dream of that globally, but our part of the world is Minnesota. We do that through education, awareness, prevention. We come alongside of families who've been impacted by sexual exploitation or trafficking. And then we also support restorative organizations. So we don't try to do everything ourselves, but we try to bring people together to address the problem holistically.
Now, when people think of Minnesota, at least we're recording this in Minnesota. People are listening to it around the country and so forth. But people don't think of Minnesota as, a hotbed for all this kind of stuff. And some eyebrows may have already been raised. How big a problem is trafficking? And how extensive is it?
Well, I would say almost every state in the union could have a corollary to ours here in Minnesota. In Minnesota, it has been determined that every county has had sex trafficking related charges filed for 4 years running. Every single county. So urban, suburban, rural, they're across the board. It is a problem. So that means it's a human problem that really needs to come out into the light and be addressed.
Right. So it's not a geographical problem.
No. Although geographics do impact the prevalence. So anytime there's a major intersection like 35 and 94, that means that there are coast-to-coast opportunities for people to be moved for trafficking from east to west and north to south. And anytime you find those kind of major corridors across our country, we see victims of exploitation and trafficking moved.
When you say the word trafficking, what exactly are you talking about?
Human trafficking consists of both labor trafficking or organ trafficking, where people's organs are sold on the black market. But sex trafficking is one of the most prevalent forms of trafficking here in the United States, particularly. Sex trafficking includes force, fraud, coercion to take someone under duress or without their consent or knowledge, and they trick them into being sold for sex acts. Sex trafficking is a big umbrella term that fits under sexual exploitation. That would include things like, it's cold here in Minnesota during the winter. So maybe there's a runaway or at-risk teen who is out and they need a warm place to stay or a warm meal in the cold weather. And so someone exploits them by having them perform sexual services in order to have a safe place to stay or to get out of the cold. So the exploitation is a large umbrella. And then the trafficking is where there's an exchange of goods or monetary services at someone else's expense.
Okay. Is this an organized, large organization, criminal enterprises? Is it individuals that are out doing this, or kind of a mixture of both?
It is all of the above. Sex trafficking, gosh, as long ago as 2018, sex trafficking brought in $99 billion in revenue annually. We're a sports geek home that I live in, and so
I think those are good homes.
we think so. It helps us keep our sanity.
I admire you for that.
So I kind of did the numbers, and I looked at the annual revenue for the National Football League, for the National Hockey League, for MLB, for baseball, for the NBA, for basketball. And then I threw in the NCAA, all of those kind of revenues. And it still didn't reach the number of $99 billion.
Wow.
So we are talking something that isn't as visible as sports, but it's more revenue producing than all of our sports.
Wow, that's astounding.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Laura Mulliken is our guest, the Executive Director of Trafficking Justice. And so all this money's being made.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much in the dark,
Yes.
underneath the surface.
Yes.
Who's making all this money?
One of the surprising things that we've found, I think sometimes if you don't know what question to ask, you don't always know what you're looking at. And one of the surprising findings that we've found over the last half dozen years is that a good portion, as many as 40% in Minnesota, begin as familial trafficking victims. So a parent, a step-parent, an uncle, a cousin, they are the ones who are actually profiting off of the sale and rape of individuals who are being trafficked. So familial trafficking is huge. And then there's the tropes are true, like pimp-controlled trafficking, organized crime has its fingers in trafficking, gang-related trafficking. So all of those things are prevalent everywhere there is trafficking. Also, I think it's been it's disheartening. I once he's now passed away, but a friend who was a pimp before he came to Christ, talked about how he could sell drugs or he could sell a gun once, and then he had to, resupply. The girls that he sold as trafficking victims, as prostitutes, the girls that he prostituted, if one went off the rails or OD'd or something, he could get another one. It was an easy supply chain to just replace the people. So people become commodities. And actually globally now, it would surprise many people to know that only drug trafficking is ahead of human trafficking. Human trafficking and sex trafficking have surpassed the illegal weapons trade around the globe.
Wow.
In dollars.
And we've all been following what's happening in the UK with this incredible scandal that's now broken out there of apparently officials looking the other way while young girls were exploited by different nationalities and so forth. Do you find that the reason this stays undercover or in the dark is because people just want to ignore it? It's too much to deal with? Or is it just ignorance? Why is it so much in the shadows?
I think it's a bit of both of those, Paul. I really believe that sexual exploitation and sex trafficking is something that is perpetrated by people because of the enemy, of God's enemy, Satan, if you will. And if you think about, there's an explosion right now of online exploitation of youth, or contacts with people online initially instead of face-to-face meetings. And if you think about the way technology has risen, technology is a good thing. It's not, it's a necessary thing.
But Satan takes all good things and turns
Yes.
them for bad.
Yes. For every good gift that God gives us,
Yeah.
Satan has a counterfeit out
Correct.
there that people are drawn to. And so as people, especially I'm thinking young people, as people are drawn toward use of technology, one of the findings that we're finding with the elevated anxiety and depression is that the technology ends up leaving them feeling isolated and vulnerable. And that can lead to addictive behavior or addictions, or open the door to unhealthy relationships or unsafe relationships, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so let me see if I can, if I do understand this. So let's say when I was growing up, which was back when Abraham was, shepherding people over there in the Middle East. It's been a long time. We had friend groups, okay? Our social life revolved around either friends at school or friends at church, and we were with them a lot. I mean, we were outside playing baseball all the time with our friends in the neighborhood. We knew who we all knew each other, and we knew each other well.
Yep.
And now these kids are online scrolling, or their friendships are being played out online through video games and so forth. So here's what I'm getting at. So when I was growing up and somebody tried to exploit me, there would be a chance that my friend group would be either saying, "What are you doing?" or steering you away from it, or telling their parents or something.
Yeah.
Now, maybe those protections aren't there, and the kids don't have that kind of support, and they feel isolated, so they're easily gullible. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's also true for kids who are socialized through like organized sports activities, right? You're in Pop Warner football, or you're in
And you're watching all those games.
Yeah.
You're at every youth game.
We are at a lot of them. But they're, so they've got their friend groups, but then a lot of their, like you say, downtime or activity time is maybe playing Fortnite or Minecraft, which are not bad in and of themselves.
Right.
It's not like they're,
Right.
Grand Theft Auto or something.
Yeah.
But many parents aren't aware that there are chat features within those game platforms. And so I've worked with families whose children have been approached by strangers, often pretending to be another kid, and they'll help them achieve a higher score or get to a new platform in a game, or they'll send them Amazon gift cards or something and establish a relationship. And the kid doesn't have those filters in place any longer. And because they're alone in their room playing the game, those kids that they see every day for practice or games aren't really even aware of that other slice of their life.
Right.
So they wouldn't have an opportunity.
So they can
to speak
present
into
something.
it.
They can present something completely different to their teammates, schoolmates, and then can be living a completely different existence in their room.
They can, yeah.
And that's scary. So, as Christian parents, we are all defensive for our children. We all want to protect them. We also don't want to shelter them to the point where they don't have to make decisions for themselves. What are some signs that we can look for that my child might be in trouble?
Wow. Sudden changes in personality. Overly reactive or stressed if their phone is taken away or they don't have access to it for a short time. Sometimes that can be a sign that someone is controlling their actions and they are responsible to let them know where they are at all times. I think also I've seen grades drop in students who were straight A students, and then all of a sudden, they have a plummeting grade point average. There are so many things like that for parents to be aware of. And the difficult thing, honestly, for Christian parents is if that's a teenager, that's just sometimes teenage life.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah. So it's hard to know the difference.
It is, but
Sometimes.
it's important to keep open communication with your kids, and I think honestly, in families that I've worked with, it seems like sometimes we forego those conversational avenues with our kids once they've gotten into school, even like kindergarten, first grade, right? Like,
Yeah.
we just stop those
Yeah.
habits. And so I would say one of the biggest preventative measures I've seen is parents having conversations early about my autonomy over my own body
Right.
as a child.
Right.
That's even child sexual abuse prevention,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But normalizing those conversations from the time they're very young and then continuing to have the conversations. The other thing, like you mentioned, overprotective parents. I've also worked with families whose child has been vulnerable to someone who had bad intent to try and pull them away from their family to another state and to sell them. And it really came down to the fact that the parents had been so fearful and protective and made every decision for the child through their life that then their rebellion was to find this person online who, in a weird way, is also telling them what they need to do or what decisions they need to make. And that's the way the child experienced love growing up. My parent loves me, they're controlling my behavior. This person loves me and they're controlling my behavior. It's completely normal.
Well, it's
So-
interesting that, like I have 2 teenage boys at home, and they act weird sometimes. They just do. And we ask them about drugs. We ask them about alcohol. We ask them about girls. I don't think I've ever asked them about any of this stuff. And so this is a good learning experience already. Like, add this to the list of things to start being aware of, right?
Yeah. I think increasingly families that I work with, it's not just teenagers, but it's children as young as 5 or 7 who have been exposed to pornography because everybody has access to digital pornography right now. A tablet, a phone, a computer. I had do we have time for a short story?
Sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 moms who are in Bible study together, they have kids that are similar in age. They're playing together down in the basement while the moms are upstairs. And the little girl comes running up. She's about 5 and says this little 7-year-old friend of hers, a boy, tried to touch her. And she was right to go and tell an adult. That was a good thing. The parents freaked out, which the boy shut down. They were like, we didn't raise you like this. What happened?
Right.
Why did you ever think of this? And so as I came in, and with the parents' permission, they were in the adjacent room, I sat with the young boy and said, usually when I try something new, it's because somebody's done something to me or shown me something. I said, can you tell me where you got the idea to touch your friend like that? And this little boy, was sweet, sweet child, well-behaved, good kid, explained to me that on the activity bus, an older boy on the bus had taken his phone and said, you want to see what girls like? And he showed him pornography. And now for people of my generation, I'm a little older, pornography kind of, you think about Playboy Centerfold or something, right?
Right.
But on a phone, we're talking living, moving, sound-filled human beings, often violent in nature. And this little boy, not knowing how to comprehend what he was seeing, was playing with his little girlfriend and thought, girls she's my friend, she's a girl, and he acted out. Now, no sexual violation took place, but
Yes.
clearly it was motivated by what he had been seeing. But he had so much internal shame when people all the adults in his life freaked out, that he just shut down and couldn't even express where he had gotten that idea.
Yeah.
So again, that's just a good idea for parents of any age to be having those conversations, normalizing conversations about pictures that make you feel uncomfortable, or
Right.
funny in your tummy.
Right.
Or for older kids, porn.
Yep.
It's as prevalent within the church as it is outside of the church in
Yeah.
our society right now.
Yeah, we're going to have you back, and we're going to talk about that very issue, because I fear sometimes the Christian community just pretends that this is an issue for outside the church, and we can, get past this because we're all Christians and nobody would ever do that. But we're going to talk about that, and you're going to tell me, I think, that that's really wrong thinking. Tell me a little bit about Trafficking Justice and how someone can help or take part in that.
Traffickingjustice.com is our website. You can go on there and contact us, see a bit about what we do or some of the organizations that we partner with and serve. Trafficking Justice is available to send out presentations to parent groups, Rotary clubs, churches on prevention and digital safety. We also talk to youth groups and youth classrooms, things like that. So we would love to serve our community or get you connected with others who do serve.
Okay, the website again?
Traffickingjustice.com.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. It's really important.
Thanks.
This isn't going to go away. We got to keep
No.
dealing with it, right?
Yep.
Thanks
Thank
so much
you.
for being here.